Welcome back. We're learning our DBT skills, and I'm going to jump right in because I'm hoping to follow through with my commitment of communicating these things over 5 minutes each week to not overload you. Um, Today, I'm really going to draw from the book, the manual, and I'm going to provide you with a PDF about what I'm looking at so you can go back through. I'm going to do a lot of reading right out of it because I think it's well written and concise, which I might not be. Um, but I want you to meditate on this idea of biosocial theory. You might have heard the debate between, you know, what makes a human? Is it nature or nurture? Is it biology or the training of parents and the environment? And this communicates it's, of course, both. Of course, the toxins and the healthy things in our environment influence the biology, the air quality, the type of home we live in, the type of city we live in. All of those things influence our biology. But then there's the training of our parents, there's the things that we learn. And one of the reasons why I'm excited about this model of DBT is because it throws a full package of skills at you to help us have everything we need to fill in some of the blanks that our parents may have missed. And this is not a judgment of blame against them. It's just an understanding that our parents are fallible and therefore they didn't train us completely perfect. And scripture says, train up a child in the way he should go. And when he's old, he will not depart from it. And sadly, that means a lot of people get stuck in behavior where they're led by a parent that is not healthy. And so to have some of these skills to try to change the way we interact in our life is important. So, first, we're going to start with emotional vulnerability is biological. It's simply how people are born, or how some people are born. They are more sensitive to emotional stimuli or emotional triggers. They can detect subtle emotional information in the environment that others don't even notice. And this is something that women are especially good at, very in tune with, again, I'll read it, subtle emotional information in the environment. And so those of us who don't relate to that might have to understand they're biologically different than us. It doesn't mean they're bad. They're different. And there might be something for us to gain. Their emotions seem to hit for no reason and come from out of the blue. They experience more emotions more often. Again, that could be annoying, but if we look at it as, okay, this might be a biological way that they were brought into this world and supported by that environment. They might have more intense emotions and their emotions hit them like a ton of bricks. But understanding, again, this is more of the wiring of them, and we might not be able to just simply talk them out of that. Another thing that is biological is impulsivity. Impulsivity is often biological in the shaping and wiring of our brain. Regulating action is harder for some than others. And if you've ever been a teacher working with students, you'll understand some kids just have a distractibility or an antsiness they can't control. Again, if we judge it, we won't work with it effectively. They can find it very hard to restrain those impulsive behaviors. Often without thinking, they do things that get themselves into trouble. Maybe they'll get hyper focused on something and just run with that and ignore the rest of what they know to be true or safety or whatnot. Um, you know, because it's impulsive, sometimes their behavior seems to come out of nowhere. They find it very hard to be effective, again, because they're so scattered that they do get distracted. Their moods get in the way of organizing to achieve their goals. They cannot control behaviors linked to their moods or struggle to control it. Again, some of these can be biological ways that people are designed, and we want to have that understanding that sometimes they're not choosing it. They need more help and more training. And that's this part of it. An invalidating social environment, which can be us with our spouse or siblings, an invalidating social environment can make it very hard to regulate emotions. So we can make it easier for them or harder for them based on how validating we are. And I want to be clear, validating does not mean we are agreeing. Validating means we're appreciating. So we don't have to agree with why our spouse is mad, but we can appreciate why they're mad. We can try to hear them out and draw that understanding. So an invalidating environment doesn't seem to understand your emotions. So it is about appreciating an emotion. appreciating and understanding. An invalidating environment tells you your emotions are invalid, weird, wrong, or bad. So when we're invalidating, say with our spouse or a sibling, we're actually going to make the interaction a lot more difficult. We're putting the person in a defensive position where they have to defend what they're feeling. If we understand them from the get-go, we can avoid all of that bickering. And so that's where pausing and being more mindful will help us do that. An invalidating environment often ignores your emotional reactions and does nothing to help you, meaning it might ignore, like we're often invalidating to ourselves if we're also invalidating to others. It may an invalidating person may say things like, don't be such a baby, or don't be so emotional, quit your blubbering, quit being such a chicken and just solve the problem, or normal people don't get this frustrated. And again, it's this mindset that you shouldn't be this way. And maybe we have a perception that God wants us to not be this way, but still we're rejecting how much biology plays a role into this. And we now know things like if there's drinking during pregnancy or even prior with the man, the health of his sperm influences the woman with things like morning sickness, and that obviously impacts the health of her and the child. There's so much that adds to it, that if we just think that the person is acting up, we'll miss out on the actual reasons, the actual contributing things. Now, hear this: people who invalidate or people who are invalidating are often doing the best they can as well. And that's the thing that we talked about last week is people often are trying the best they can. They often have a lot of missing pieces and missing resources to help them do better. That's what we're trying to do right now. We're trying to fix that. We're not trying to leave things as they are, but first we're trying to accept things as we are so then we can work within that system. Those people who are invalidating may not know how to validate or how important it is to validate. Or they may be afraid that if they validate your emotions, you will get more emotional and not less. I have not seen that to be the case. When you get good at validating someone and being mindful and attentive to their emotion, trust me, they actually regulate sooner. And this is not giving into them and letting them have their way. This is just being a good friend. The person who's invalidating may be under high stress. So pay attention. If you're an invalidating person, what kind of stress are you under? Time pressure, or they may have too few resources for themselves. And again, that's why we're wanting to equip us. There may be just a poor fit between you and your social environment. Sort of this idea of you being a tulip in a rose garden. Sometimes we're not a right fit for our environment, so we might need to make that change. Or the right fit for like a job, a position that we're just not appreciating. It's like, I need to be in a different environment. This is not what I'm made to be doing. And that's okay too. We can't always leave those environments, but sometimes we can. An ineffective social environment is a big problem when you want to learn to regulate emotions and actions. Rewind that if you can. Your environment may reinforce out of control emotions and actions. So if people give in when you get out of control and just let you have your way, it will be hard for you to get in control. You're just going to learn to get out of control. And that's where learning boundaries is important. If others command you to change, but don't coach you on how to do this, it will be hard to keep on trying to change. And this is a big problem I have with church often, is there's a lot of commanding and not coaching. And my God came to earth to shepherd me through my challenges. And that image of a shepherd guiding rather than simply commanding is a huge difference. That's what we're talking about. When we have issues with ourselves or others, we need to shepherd ourselves and others or coach them through it rather than simply command. We're not giving them much when we're commanding. Finally, it's the transactions that count between the person and the social environment. So I want you to hear this and replay this a couple times if you need to. Biology and the social environment influence the person. It's both what you eat, how you sleep, and how you're interacting with the people around you. All of that contributes. So pay attention to those things. When you're in an argument, how well did you sleep last night? Did you eat? Did you drink? Did you get any sun today? So hear this part. The person reciprocates or acts and influences his or her social environment. So my action influences my social environment. Then the social environment reacts to me and influences me. And it goes on and on. And we got to realize that if we change how we're contributing, we can change everything. Or we leave the environment if we can't. It means we're powerful. And God made us powerful. God made us to be change makers, to build his kingdom here on earth. And that might not look like some of what we have in mind, but I guarantee you it looks like more peace between each other. It looks like more listening and more compassion. So pay attention to these things. Thanks for bearing with me. I went double time, but I wanted to get through this particular section because this is the last section of our introduction. And then next week, we start diving into more skills. So thank you and be blessed.